Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. My name is Ellie and it's an absolute pleasure to welcome you in this sort of safe space that I've set up for everybody today. So I've just figured tonight that it would be a good moment to make a collective healing reading together, as a lot of people probably are. I've been feeling a bit overwhelmed lately. I've been feeling a little bit anxious all week. Of course, what has been happening over in Ukraine, and it has made it quite difficult for me, I will be honest, to just go on ahead and jump into the lighthearted stuff with tarot, right? And do love readings and stuff like that. I mean, not that love readings are unimportant or anything like that, but it's been difficult for me to try to act as though nothing bigger than myself is happening with the world at this time, right? It's been very difficult for me to do that. And I know that for a lot of you guys, you have been feeling this way too. You have been feeling the blues lately, especially my empaths out there who are very sensitive to humanitarian causes. And I was actually very surprised to see very few tarot readings on this subject over on YouTube, in a collective healing format like that, like what I'm going to do today. Yes, you know that it depends what is your mission with tarot, right? And for when it comes to me, being a healer, I feel like I'm both feet into my calling right now with reading on this subject for sure. So yeah, I don't know about you guys, but even being from Canada, I can feel the heaviness and a sort of dark night of the soul our collective is going through at the moment. Obviously, this is a very uncertain time for the majority of people, whether you are from Russia or from Ukraine or not, you know. But not only just that, but war in general tends to reach a very, very deep personal chord inside of me each time, which may be why I cried a lot this week. I purged a lot. I felt the need to cleanse, and I felt my ancestral line just pushing me to get this reading out somehow. So this reading came to me very spontaneously one of these mornings. I really needed to get this out. I was really nudged because, for those of you who don't know me, I'm kind of like a child of World War II in a sense. My ancestry is Polish, and so I have seen how war can scar a soul and a whole nation, even decades after the end of it. Oftentimes, we think that when a war is over, it's like everything can get back to normal. But actually, for the lives of people that are directly impacted by these wars, there's often no coming back to the past the way that it was before. There's usually no passing over through an event like that. There's only a recovery journey, right? As a nation, as an individual healing journey as well. So that's why I just figured that I want to address this subject with you all together to see how we may go through this energy together collectively as a species, how we may survive it, how we may help each other get through it, how we may eventually find perhaps little pieces of healing here and there along the journey while we are going through such a massive collective trauma. Because yes, you know, every war, in my opinion, not just in Ukraine, but everywhere around the globe, it's like another collective trauma adding to the history of our humanity, each of them being one too many, if you want my opinion. So let's tune in together with the wisdom of our ancestors and the wisdom of the tarot, and what they have to give about this new collective dark night of the soul. And let's just chat today. Let's just ramble. Let's just find some release. And I invite you all to show your support down below to every Ukrainian as well as Russian who is impacted by this war that they never asked for. I invite you to share your own wisdom down below and maybe leave a little insight of hope to the ones who may come across the comment section of this video. And trigger alert before I pull the cards. We are going to probably touch some heavy themes in this reading. So if you are not in the right mental or emotional state, please, please, please keep this video for later. Just don't. All right. It's okay to come back when you're going to feel ready, because it's going to be triggering for sure, because healing and release is never never something that we can force in ourselves. We have to choose it back. We have to be ready for it. We can set the intention for it, but healing and release actually comes when we allow ourselves to go through our emotions associated with our trauma freely, until forgiveness and until healing naturally accompanies the wound. All right, so please don't force it. Click out of the video if you aren't ready. Otherwise, I hope that there will be something in there that will at the very least give you guys something to think about. For when it comes to heavy readings like that are about healing, there is no one solution fits all, because that's the thing, is that the journey of life has us come to our own answers, right? However, we can still inspire each other to choose to heal nonetheless, and that is the point of this reading today. So it's to plant a seed and inspire healing, not force it, because the time will come once you are ready. Okay, but this is not a race, loves. So let's get into it. I figured that we could do today some sort of Celtic Cross 2.0. It's been a very long time since I've done a Celtic Cross, to be honest. So it should be quite special. So the first card that I'm going to draw is going to be talking about where we are collectively now. And the Seven of Swords straight up jumped out of the deck for us all, you guys. So we have the Seven of Swords here. So this is talking about where we are at collectively, consciously. Now let's draw a card for the blockage or the challenge that we are collectively facing psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, physically, perhaps, in relation to the war. Spirit. What is the collective challenge that is impacting us all as a result of this war? And we have the Hierophant. I hope that I'm not too zoomed in. I hope like you guys can see the card. It's really gorgeous. I really love this deck. All right. So let's take a look now at the collective unconscious about this situation now, because one thing that I love about the collective unconscious is that it speaks of an energy happening in the shadow. So it's not because we don't collectively recognize it or see it that it's not there, and that it is still not happening. And just because we are not acknowledging it individually doesn't mean that it doesn't still affect us in our daily lives, behind the scenes, you know. So Spirit, what is in our collective unconscious at this moment about the war? We have here the Two of Coins reversed. So that will be our unconscious. Let's see now how we may move past this. I'm not going to say move forward from this, but move forward with this. Because I don't think that with such a trauma like that, we can ever really move over it. But I definitely do think that we can move forward alongside with it, alongside with the wisdom, the lessons. Let's draw another one. We have here the Nine of Swords. Don't know if the camera can zoom in. Okay. So this is how we can move forward. And underneath the deck, we have the Seven of Coins. Let's start with that for now. I'm probably going to draw some more cards later, but let's start with what we have here. And let me just take a moment right now to sort of tune in with the energies of the cards being present here. One word that instantly comes to me for when it comes to the energy we are consciously in right now is powerlessness. I see this with the Seven of Swords, this Seven of Pentacles reverse, and this Two of Coins reverse even. Because the Seven of Swords, you know, is a card that is very famous for speaking about taking something that doesn't belong to it. That's why this man here is sort of stealing those swords away. So this card often speaks of somebody else doing something very sneaky behind the scene and sort of taking advantage of the fact that our guard is down. So that immediately makes me think of the army that have sat in Ukraine's border for weeks before anybody started becoming really suspicious. I don't want to, you know, mention names here in this reading. I don't want to speak about Putin or anything like that because I don't want to enter a very useless debate and wheel of pointing fingers here, because, you know, humans will always be humans to me for the rest of eternity, right? We all have an ego. And yes, some people with more power become very dangerous with their ego because they hold more individual impact with it. Their impact has more weight in a global scale. The more we have money, the more we have influence, which is what our world runs by, the greater this power becomes and the weight that comes with it. But this war is far more complex than that, isn't it? So that's why I find it funny, you know, to see people concentrate on Putin. You know, I don't personally know him. I don't respect him at all. But still, who am I to assume what he is thinking and feeling? I'm not in his mind. And pretending that we are in his mind, to me, can be dangerous too as well, because we fall back into the trap of our own ego that needs to find a bad guy here and separate from our part of the responsibility, which is quite counterproductive in my own opinion. But that being said, that's a conversation for another day, my friends. We're not here for that. But I just wanted to say that about the Seven of Swords here, we also have the Seven of Coins reversed. I really see with those two cards, number 7, that we're becoming really self-reliant because we cannot trust or believe in the people who hold the earth's fate into their hands at this moment. But also what this Seven of Pentacles speaks about to me, it speaks of something we wish we could be done and over with. This card reverse gives me the feeling of I just want to bury this and go back to a peaceful place, to the life that it was before. But I don't know how. I don't know how to bury this. I just want to wash my hands from this as well with this Two of Coins reverse. I don't want to have to feel guilty about this. That's not my responsibility, or that's none of my power. That's not something that I want to have to carry on my shoulders. Remember that this card speaks of our collective unconscious, you guys. So this is something we're all impacted by, whether we recognize it or not. So what I'm getting here is that I feel that for a big majority of people, and me included, it's very frustrating to have to sit back and watch and to feel like we have no control, no power, no political voice, not enough weight in this balance of what is happening currently with the world around us. I find it so interesting because I often see that as a social experiment each time that a catastrophe like this happens in the world, right? And I don't know if some of you have watched the movie Look Up on Netflix with Leonardo DiCaprio. If you have watched it, then probably you know exactly what I'm talking about. But if you haven't watched that movie yet, then I definitely recommend it to you because it's such an interesting look over society. And this movie it has plenty of funny moments, and it also have moments that are actually quite scary, to be honest, because of how true and similar they reflect how we often react as a society to events of major scale like that. But it's a very good external view of our society, in my opinion, and of how we react when a major cataclysm threatens our entire world. And oftentimes you will have this group of people that is desperate to get the truth out, right? So that we can start working on finding a solution for it. But then there is also another group of people which doesn't want to have to look at the heavy stuff because it's uncomfortable, right? So it's easy to get back to our lives and pray that somebody else would just take charge of it for us and go back to our celebrities, gossips, or whatever. There's shallow things like that, so that we can just numb ourselves and take ourselves away from the real important deal. But then there is also always another group of people that will come into opposition and conspire or make their own political agenda out of the lack of trust they have with modern science or with our experts, which, it's so disgusting for me to see experts' opinions being twisted by political interest, because then when our governments do that, or when people in society with a lot of influence do that, it removes the objective fact behind the truths that we can still observe as a society. And those truths, they become biased, which in turn make us feel like we don't know who and what we can trust anymore. But this debate and those three groups of people that I've just mentioned here, we've experienced it with global warming. We've experienced it with COVID. We're experiencing it with this war, actually, at this time. It's always somebody's on top who has responsibility, right? It's never our individual responsibility. No. For when it comes to taking individual responsibility, everybody becomes silent. Have you noticed? Everybody doesn't feel like it concerns them when they are not both feet in, when it's not directly affecting them or affecting their loved ones. I'm just taking, for example, before I started traveling to third world countries, I remember when I was young, like everybody, our parents will tell us, you eat what's on your plate, because there are children out there who don't have enough food to eat, right? And I used to think to myself, like, oh, I don't quite get it, because it wasn't part of my reality back then. I was just a child. So I was like, the only world that I knew was the one I grew up in, right? It never felt like a reality I felt close to, to see that there were hungry children in this world, until I traveled for the first time in a third world country and I was confronted by it right before my eyes. I was 18 years old at the time, and I remember how much it just shocked me to a whole new level, because yes, although I knew that this existed, it resonates so differently when we are seeing it or watching it happening right in front of us. Right? It will always resonate differently when it's directly impacting us and impacting our environment. So when it's not directly affecting us or affecting our loved ones, it's funny, because our brains are designed this way, where it's more difficult for us to empathize. And it's not necessarily always our fault. Our brains are just programmed in this way. So this lack of empathy here is not new, and we've witnessed it many times. We've witnessed it with global warming. We've witnessed it with COVID. We are witnessing it right now with certain individuals in our life. Everybody know a crazy uncle out there. I'm just making a metaphor here, but everybody have this uncle out there that we're a little bit ashamed of when they open their mouth to speak their very biased opinions. We all have this person in our family that we wish sometimes we could be able to shake them up and just be like, show a little bit of empathy, show a little bit of compassion, right? So it's very difficult for empaths and sensitive people out there who have an awareness to the suffering of the world, who are able to sense it, and that want to take personal responsibility for big global issues, especially since we are in Pisces season still, and Pisces is the big sensitive of the zodiac, but it's very difficult to just go on with our lives and pretend. So I know that a lot of people on my channel are sensitive and empaths for sure. It's very difficult to just carry on with our lives as though nothing was going on. It makes you want to almost lose faith when you see people like that, when you witness people with opinions like that or with a lack of empathy. It makes you want to give up. It makes you want to just escape sometimes. I know I feel this way at times. It's easy to feel very very lost and very overwhelmed, feeling like we're a tiny little grain of sand on the beach. It feels so disempowering when you think about it, doesn't it? I know that alcohol intakes for my generation, for millennials, have majorly peaked. And I was reading an article about that a few days ago. It's very, very sad. It's very difficult, you know, as an empath or sensitive, to just scroll down our Instagram or Facebook wall and see war memes, you know, and you're just like, oh yeah, for 2 seconds, it's a little bit funny. And then just right after that, you see a video where people are just cramped up in a metro station praying for their freaking life while on top of their heads, their homes are being bombed. It's so emotionally fucked up and conflicting, excuse my words, but it's true. It can be disturbing to watch and make you wonder, like in a movie Look Up, what have we done to ourselves? How am I supposed to feel about this at an era where technology is so accessible, you know, where there are so many people with platforms to express themselves, those people with influence, with thousands and thousands of followers and subscribers, who can use this power to, you know, influence crowds how they wish in empowering messages or empowering manners. But then you see the same person post a video about, excuse me, but frivolous stuff, you know, about their freaking image or attention grabbing schemes. Not everybody is like that, okay? Not everybody is like that, and I don't like generalizations like that, but I'm just saying that there's a lot of fake out there, right? And when you see that, it makes you wonder what the heck is going on. I am sorry, but it's disappointing to see that. It makes you wonder, what have we done to ourselves to distract us from the real big elephant in the room, or from talking about it? Because I know it's uncomfortable. I know it's sometimes too political, but I'm sorry, but everything is political in the world that we live in. And there is no escaping this. Everything that we buy is a political choice. Everything we decide to listen to is a political choice. Spirituality is political. So how the hell that with so much access to technology, to information like we've never had access to before, we still don't trust in it? How is it that we are so close and yet so cut out from the truth, right? Which swords in tarot, they speak of that. They speak of the truth. So I've heard that now Russia and Ukraine have power to manipulate and simulate certain fake videos and distribute them, and distribute that fake information to fit their political stance. And that's not new, you guys, because many people do that every day. All of the time, many people twist their own videos or personal experiences to fit their own political agenda, right? I'm just looking at this card, the Hierophant here that came out for our collective challenge. When I'm saying all of that, because the Hierophant is often associated in tarot with the hierarchy and power over institutions. But to me, he is also the Pope of the tarot. He is our mouthpiece to the All High, to the spiritual truth that we are all bounded by, whether we like it or not. But what happens though when one single man is being put on this throne and claims to hold this truth? We've seen it happen in religion and in tyranny for certain governments. Corruption and abuse of power happens. So the Hierophant, to me, especially talks of our moral compass, of our ethics, and what we will and will not allow and accept as a society, right? It's the moral compass our society runs by. So this Hierophant, to me, as a challenge here, is also a twisted belief system we are all suffering from, to me, that reinforces the loss of faith that we all have experienced collectively to some degree. And some people will say, you know, but who can blame us at the same time? Because that's the result of our belief system being constantly twisted to fit everybody's political agenda and view. But at some point, we also have to realize that this is also the result of the lack of education and awareness our society didn't provide us for when it comes to, making proper researches and verify them with legitimate sources, for instance. And at some point, whether we like the place that we are in or not, we will all have to take responsibility for how is it that we feel if we are to start implementing changes on a bigger, larger scale, and stop looking at each other to see who will break this silence first or do the first move first. You see what I mean? So this Hierophant is the lack of faith in our future, or the lack of faith we have with the world that this war has sort of strengthened. It's the lack of faith we have with the people that are supposed to be in charge and our governments. It's the lack of faith in humanity. Just seeing how everybody else personally reacts to this event. And I don't know about you guys, but for me personally, what sort of infuriated me for the last 2 weeks was actually the lack of reactions, but this lack of faith builds and builds one brick by brick by brick, one after the other, until one day it breaks our connection, until one day it establishes this wall in between us and our spiritual nature, our own divinity. It breaks our connection to our capacity to believe in the good of humanity as well, to believe that good things can still happen, to believe and trust in each other even. This lack of connection creates a lack of empathy over time, because at some point, if you don't want to become mentally insane, you will have to numb yourself or release responsibility somewhere, and we all agree on that. However, done to a certain extreme and to a certain level where we're just being passive like that, that leads us collectively to a huge energy of escapism because of this powerlessness. And that's what I see here with the Seven of Coins and Seven of Swords, and Seven of Coins reverse. The sevens in tarot, they speak of illusion somehow, of working at breaking out of the illusion. That's big Saturn vibes here that I'm getting with this reading. Big Pisces shadow energy as well. It's interesting because by the time that I'm filming this video, we are still in Pisces season, astrologically speaking. And by the time that the war was declared, I believe that it was the beginning of Pisces season as well, if I am not mistaken. And that's the shadow of Pisces energy here that I'm feeling all day, every day. Because when Pisces is in its shadow, and I am talking about Pisces energy here, you guys, but you may recognize yourself if you have a lot of Pisces placement in your personal planet. So this means your sun, your moon, your rising sign, or your Mercury, Mars, or Venus. Or if you have a lot of 12th house placements in your chart, you may maybe recognize yourself in this as well. But I'm not talking about you guys who have a sun in Pisces or nothing like that. I'm just talking about Pisces as an energy, which everybody have somewhere in their chart, by the way. But when Pisces energy is not doing well, what does it do? It slips, because it's the fish of the zodiac, right? So since it's the fish, it's slippery because its environment is water. In occultism, it represents the essence of someone's soul and their emotional body. Without water, there is no life. But Pisces slip, and Pisces swim and swiftly escape through emotionally loaded situations. That's why a lot of people will say in the spiritual community that Pisces often are more often than not, depending on other placements in their chart. But people will say that these individuals are often avoidant personality types. They have a tendency for escapism, or wanting to avoid the very difficult, very tedious, very heavy subject, or the dark truths, the cold, harsh truths that hurt, with the Seven of Swords. And it's not that Pisces don't dive into depths, because obviously they are fish. So on the contrary, it's just that Pisces has a very extremely sensitive skin, empathic and psychic skin that not everybody talk about enough. So I'm going to speak of what this means for a little bit, because this sign Pisces gets often poo-pooed on in the spiritual community, in my own opinion. And I want to do it justice because Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. So its vibration includes all of the previous signs of the zodiac. That's why Pisces is able to merge and be the chameleon that it is. But Pisces energy, when they are avoidant, they are not avoidant because they don't want to look at the solution. Most often than not, on the contrary, they want to look at the solution, but they rarely want to look at the problem. That's the problem here. That's the thing. And that's because Pisces, again, is the fish of the zodiac, and therefore it is the most sensitive sign. And I know that being sensitive is often associated with the pejorative thing, but it's really not. Being sensitive simply means that we're someone that walk through life with our emotional environment on very loud volume constantly. That's what Pisces does. It's like an antenna for everybody's emotions. So it's funny because by the way, I'm a diver. For those of you who don't know me personally, that's another one of my really big passion in life alongside tarot. And I don't know if you have watched a fish in its natural environment before, and I'm talking natural environment here. So not in an aquarium or anything like that, but a fish in the wild. You know, fish in the wild are never stationary. They are constantly moving, and they are so sensitive. They are such sensitive creatures. Their skin is able to feel every tiny movement and vibration that the water does, and the slight variation of temperature of it. They can easily pick up on it. That's how they can follow their pack with such synchronicity and avoid all of the predators. Their skin is how they feel and navigate through their environment. It's kind of like their form of intelligence, if you will. And so I find it funny each time that some people think that fish are not sentient as a sentient of a being, or that they should not feel as bad for hurting fish than other types of animal. Oh, they are sensitive, all right? I swear to God, they feel pain, definitely. It's not because that they can scream or tell you that they don't feel it, because scientifically, we are 110% sure that fish feel an extreme amount of slight discomfort and pain every time that they are stressed out or taken out of their natural environment because of their very sensitive skin and their habit to be in constant movement and constant flow with the water. So I'm telling you all of that so that you know that we are still in Pisces season right now. And by the time that the war was declared, we were in Pisces season. So it feels tempting to avoid looking and feeling the very difficult things that we need to feel as a society right now, as nations across the world. And it's not that we are avoiding it because we don't want to fix it. We avoid it because we feel so overwhelmed by the problem. We want to avoid because we can feel, just like Pisces feels, the suffering of others. We can feel it so vividly that it completely deactivate us from taking action. So I feel that the world here is not sitting back and watching because we want to allow what is going on to happen, but it's a lot more complex than that. So powerlessness is really coming through here for each and every one of us. I want to keep this Nine of Swords card that speak of our future and how we may traverse and move forward with this conflict. And I want to pull more cards, you guys. So I will put these ones aside for now. Let's take a look at how we may heal, how we may basically move forward with this conflict. I want to pull more cards, you guys, and see how we may support each other and the world at this time where we all feel so disactivated and so disempowered. But what I'm getting already with this Nine of Swords is that this war is meant to push us to address what keeps us at night as a humanity, as human beings. This Nine of Swords to me is speaking of awakening at night because our spirit cannot accept or put something to rest. And that's because things have got to change moving on. That complacency, silence, comfort, or fear that the Nine of Swords represent doesn't breed change. It feeds into this passivity, into this anxiety that we're all observing is happening with the world about this war, and many other stakes, you know. This Nine of Swords is the fear of completely losing control. There is a fear of losing control here that I can sense very vividly. There's a fear of the boundless energy in this world that feels so much bigger than us and what we can do, that we are all individually working at overcoming, is what I see with this card. There is also a fear here of merging with chaos that we are collectively addressing right now. We don't know how to do that because it's affecting our mental health, to have to take a part of the responsibility or to want to take some sort of action, or we may feel a bit too insignificant in order to do that. But at the same time, if we are to go on and rebuild or change the future, we will all have to stop from this form of escapisms that we saw with the Seven of Swords and Seven of Pentacles and Two of Pentacles as well, because that's a trauma response, right? That's self-defense response that's a self-defense response to victimize ourselves. But someday we will all have to face ourselves in the mirror. We will have to be very, very brave and to face our biggest fears, because war is simply but a reflection of the collective shadow always. So let's see how we can do that individually and realistically while also protecting our mental health, because there's a lot of powerlessness that I can see here for sure. And what we need is to get inspired to action and to heal our faith. That's one thing that I always say about healing, is that healing is one of the freaking bravest act, man. And healing is actually painful. That's two cards here, so I'm not going to keep those. But yeah, healing is actually quite painful. It's not this whoa sort of liberation, well, all of the sudden we feel so light and so at peace, you know. So I love to see this Nine of Swords in terms of our future, actually, because this emotion here is going to push us towards becoming so uncomfortable that we have no choice but to look at the difficult truths. You know, we cannot allow that to slip under the rug of history again and allow this to gain more power than it already has. So Spirit, how we may move forward from this? What are some actions that we can take to empower ourselves and take action? There's a card that flipped here, and this is the Hangman reversed. Yeah, look at that, you guys. The Hangman is suspended there because he's waiting to die. He's completely powerless, completely deactivated, and yet that is there in this position of discomfort that he makes the biggest spiritual realization of his life. It's like a wake-up call. The Hangman to me is like it's the moment that we need to be in order to wake up spiritually. So there's a lot of stillness here. There is a certain wisdom that we came to extract in the world being hung upside down. We have here the Four of Coins. Let's draw another one. Maybe one last one. We have here the Ace of Wands reversed. It's so funny that this ace actually came out, because that's one thing that I was able to feel before I even started this reading, and I decided to not talk about it because I wanted to see if there would be some sort of correlation with the cards coming out. But I was able to actually feel that there was a collective choice here that was going to be made, some sort of chance being given And aces in tarot, they always represent some sort of new opportunity or new choice or new chance. And so this one is reversed. Interesting. I also want to draw some last oracle cards from this deck here, because like I've said, I know that many of you who are watching my channel, a lot of people here are healers, tarot readers themselves, or spiritual people already. So I want to draw a few cards from this deck because maybe that will inspire us and give us some ideas about some concrete actions that we can do every day to sort of at least change our vibration about this, right? Because if we can heal individually, that's how we're going to accelerate the collective healing process. And I also want to know as well, woo! Sorry, there's a card here that fell off. Let's check what this one is about. We have here, turn on switch. All right. Let's check if we can get some other ones. We have here, reaching out to spirit. Practicing patience. That makes me think of the hangman here. That is into a big act of surrender right now. The hangman is surrendering to his faith, to what it is that he cannot control. And of course, there are some things that he can change, but there are other stuff as well that he can't. And he will need to come to accept that. You have here soul connection. I will place the cards better after that for you guys to see them all correctly, because I don't think that the camera will be able to pick them up. And we have ethical awareness. Look at that, you guys. That's pretty much what I was talking about with the previous Hierophant. Is that this challenge has us take a look at our moral compass, at our ethics, you know, our moral codes. All right, so now that I have placed my setup a little bit better for you guys to see, yeah, so like I've said, the hangman speaks of a moment of intense discomfort that we sometimes need to be in order to shift reality. And so that is why he is sort of hanging upside down, to start to see the world from a completely different perspective than before. So when we are being hung upside down like him and have nothing more to do but to look the world from this perspective, from there, and from this stillness, we have no choice but to confront ourselves, confront our inner pains, our inner reflections, and our inner demons. And that's in there, in this position of life that we can sort of transcend. And that's why I've always associated the hangman with moments of epiphany. Sort of, you know, so it's kind of when we are feeling stuck in a moment like that, that sometimes we realize that something isn't meant for us anymore, or something has got to change. You see what I mean? So we cannot change the world if we don't change ourselves, our view of the world, and our own habits first. And that's something that the hangman reversed to me is a huge statement of, you know, we cannot expect the world to change for us if we are not even receptive to change in the first place individually. And we can certainly not tell people how to change or what they should do to change, because that's what religion has done, you guys, and that's what war has always done. And look where we are at today. You see, so we don't tell people that they need to change in spirituality, or we don't need to tell them how to change, because people don't change because they are told to. See, people change because they feel inspired to do it somewhere. And oftentimes for people that are very hard-headed or very close-minded, sort of in this Four of Coins position, really holding on tightly, sometimes it can take them to have to hang up upside down or to be in a very extremely uncomfortable position that pushes them out of their comfort zone, to start to see things from a brand new perspective, to start to see things straight. And that's what I see happening in our future here as a collective, where the world is sort of purged right now in a hangman moment. But that's how we are going to make big realizations for the next months to come, that certain things cannot continue the way that they have been anymore. And it's interesting because this Four of Coins somehow is giving me a very conservative energy. But then with this Ace of Wands reverse right next, it's like the world may be forced into some sort of innovation or progression soon. And it's funny because I was talking about that with some friends this week, because everybody is talking about the price of petrol that is increasing, right? And that's because Russia is the second or third biggest oil exporter, if I recall correctly. And we were saying, what about if this war is actually what gives us no choice but to surrender and to turn to other alternatives? More eco-friendly, renewable energy alternatives. Look at that fire that is burning here. You know, what about if that is the push that we needed to accelerate our transition towards renewable energy? Because we don't want to have to depend on Russia anymore, right? With everything that is going on. So the point is that great discomfort, great tragedies, and great moments where we feel like our world is falling down, they can also be sometimes the force that will inspire us to bring us to the biggest changes we have never made and that we needed to make desperately, to the biggest shift of consciousness and perspective that we never made. And I know that for me personally, the biggest tragedies and losses of my own personal life have always been connected to also a greater change somewhere. Because then we have no choice but to learn and to try to do things differently and to try to adapt. And that's the chance that I saw with this Ace of Wands reverse. That's the gift that we have, that humanity has to the very least, right? Is that we're capable of adaptation. That's for sure. Both this Hangman and this Four of Coins, they speak of an act of surrender. And surrender, it comes from acceptance. And in yoga, we talk a lot about acceptance. And the thing is that I noticed that a lot of people mistaken acceptance for passivity and for abandoning, right? For giving up. They think that acceptance means that we have to allow what is happening to us to happen. But acceptance is not that at all, because that's denial. And denial doesn't bring change either. But acceptance is actually the opposite. It's actually about contemplating things for what they actually are. You know, acceptance is seeing the actuality of things without wanting to change them based off our own opinions and our own experience. Because that's only then when we start to look at what is actually going on for the guts of it and not the facts of it. And where our choices brought us, that we can start realizing what needs to change. And it's only then that we can take a stand to prevent further harm from being caused. So just some food for thought here, but I speak about this often. But for when it comes to individual healing, the individual healing that we can inspire each other to make, that's a lot of hyper conscious energy that I see ourselves connecting to. A connection to the collective conscious, which in turn feels like a reconnection here to our spirit of activism as well, is what I feel with this kind of a turn on switch, reaching out the spirit, soul connection, and ethical awareness. I see some psychic boundaries as well that we also need to allow ourselves to trace from time to time. I see with this card of turn on switch, that whenever we feel deeply for a cause, whenever we want to participate to a change, kind of like an activist, when we live the activist lifestyle or live a life where we are regularly being of service, we need to have sometimes this switch that we can turn on and off, right? Where we can also get back to our individual life and draw some sort of boundary to stay sane, to where we are able to leave the heavy loaded emotions we have been through during the day behind, where we have picked them from. So I want to say that for when it comes to being of service, it's never really an all white or black thing. It's never an all or nothing thing. If you feel that you can't do everything that you want to do, or you can't be involved in everything that you deeply care about or are touched by, if you feel overwhelmed and deactivated by that because you feel that you can't just go out into the world and save everyone from all of these problems by yourself, well, it doesn't mean that you have to completely shut down and not have any sense of social consciousness or activism or responsibility still in your life. Sometimes we think that we can only be of service once we have enough money, or once we have enough time, or when our own personal problems will have gone away and be sorted through. Where all of the stuff that is going on in our life will sort of be organized in this Four of Coins fashion. But activism and living in ethical awareness is not at all about that, because our lives don't permit us a lot of the time to take as much break as we will want from, living most of the time. That's why most activists are doing things alongside everything else that is happening, because they find a way to make it work for them. So they look for ways that will be able to both enable them to keep going through their life as usual, but that will also enable them to participate in their own way, in a sense. And I feel that this is the most self-loving, most effective way to look at it, because just because we live very busy lives with a lot of stuff that is happening inside of it doesn't mean that we can't still have some sort of an impact somewhere, because sometimes the biggest impacts are actually chain reactions. That's why if you are someone that has a business or social media platform, something like that, or even none of that, if you're just capable of expressing yourself, you can use this means, this platform, or your art or your creativity to breed the change that you want to see, to inspire others with words, with thoughts, with inspiration, and to spread awareness through that. We can use what we have to spread messages that are relevant, authentic, and meaningful, instead of destructive, harmful, or irrelevant. That's all up to us to look at the type of commitment we are willing to make, so that we can sort of integrate this into our life a little more, in the way that we talk about it, and the way that we respond or hold space for the world, or hold space for someone who is directly impacted. So like I have said, people often don't want to talk politics because they know that it can be a source of dispute sometimes. You see, but I also think that for a lot of people, it makes them feel comfortable, or it makes them feel tired to have to put a lot of thoughts into what is happening in the world and what they feel deactivated by, right? What they feel so small in front of, that they feel that they cannot change. But we also have to realize that everything in life is political, like I was mentioning earlier. And so as a buyer, as a consumer, you have a political voice each time that you decide to subscribe or consume something. And so politics are not obliged to be always this very heavy, murky stuff, right? It's not always to be confrontation. Talking politics sometimes can instead be a very healing and empowering thing to do. You see, and it all depends which way you decide to approach it and see it and nourish it. So we need to remember that is what I feel is a message here. All right, you guys, so I feel like I've been speaking for a very long time now. I hope that you could connect with something in here, and I want to thank you so much for spending this time with me on the channel again. And if you have made it this far, please keep in touch. Leave a piece of your wisdom down below in the comment section maybe, or whatever you can channel for people who need a little bit of that hope right now. Or maybe simply leave a dove emoji below and charge it with love and support. Send that energy to the universe with me, and take very good care of yourselves. Hopefully I will see you all in the next video in another reading. Bye, you guys.